Welcome back to Ontario Cryptids. I'm happy to see you all returned for another exciting episode. First, let me take care of my call to action, which is, if you're enjoying my content, be sure to hit the like button, the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. This way, you won't miss next week's episode. If you have an encounter of your own, I'd love to hear about it. Send your stories to ontariocryptids@gmail.com, and I will definitely be featuring it in a future episode. Now, sit back as we get started with these encounter stories. This is a story I have been reluctant to even think about. One night, me and 3 other friends were in a storage shed located on the back of my friend's property, fetching some things we needed. We decided to head back to the house after we got what we came for, and I was left behind attempting to latch the door because it was very old and hard to get it to fasten properly. My 3 buddies had walked off at this time, leaving me and headed towards the house. I was walking the exact same path they were taking, actually more of a faster trot, when I heard a noise like disturbed leaves to the left of me. Curiously startled, I stopped and looked in the direction of the noise, and there it was. Now at this location, it happened to be at the back of the house, and there's a chain-link fence and about 15 feet separating me and this creature. The thing I most remember is the size of this thing and the silhouette of the creature's head to neck and shoulders. Where a human has a visible neckline, what I witnessed had not, but I did notice huge shoulder muscles, too supernatural to be of anyone I've seen. I did notice how dense the hair on the body of this creature was, so it could have added to the size of what I saw. I didn't mention this, but there was only moonlight for me to see this by. Also, this thing's abdomen was also tremendous and in well-defined V-shape atop a curvy big legs. I have read some other reports, and a lot noticed a pungent odor, but I did not, and I believed that there was only 15 feet at most between me and this creature. But what I did notice was a deep, deep breathing sound, and then a deep growl rumble, like a cougar, kind of intermittent, if that makes any sense. And after that, it prompted me to slowly walk off out of fear. This occurrence only took about 30 to 45 seconds, but I remember what I saw. I never mentioned this to anyone until about a year later, when my friend had told me about something strange that happened in the woods near the property. I witnessed a Sasquatch at about 225 yards distance for approximately 15 seconds while it traveled around 75 yards along the back of a stony quarry near Middleport, New York in the fall of 2002. I stopped there to look for deer in a large field behind a quarry that are always there, and I immediately noticed when I exited my truck a dark biped moving very rapidly through waist-high grass on a very uneven rocky terrain. It seemed to float through the field as I could not see its legs due to the height of the grass it moved through. I noticed that it was completely the same color, and it seemed to hold its arms at its side as it moved very, very quickly from left to right. At first sight, I thought it was a girl with very long hair, but quickly noticed that it was completely the same color with no obvious clothes coloration, and moved much too fast, although at the same distance I was. I could not make out any actual features, and at no time did it look in my direction. I believe I startled this creature by pulling into the stone driveway, which makes considerable noise. As it crossed a path next to a cornfield and angled slightly away from me, I noticed that its gluteal area was somewhat lighter colored. The biped then moved directly into a standing cornfield and was not seen after that time. When I say traveled very quickly, I mean it was really moving very rapidly, but at no time did it seem like it was running, as you or I would look as if traveling at that speed due to the fact that there was no discernible movement of its arms as it floated through the tall grass. I am convinced that this was a Sasquatch I witnessed, as I have been an avid outdoorsman since a very young age, hunting, hiking, and camping for over 40 years, and very experienced with animals in the wild. And I know what I saw that afternoon was remarkable. Me and a friend decided that we were going to go hike Mount Timpanogos. Being early spring, there was patches of snow on the ground at the Aspen Grove trailhead. We decided to go up there the night before and sleep in the car so that we can get a start early in the morning. We were sitting in the car and talking and had the windows down a little for air when we heard the noise that sounded like someone walking behind a car. My friend asked, "Who's there?" There was no answer. Since we had not seen any other cars or people all night, this kind of spooked us. Then it got really weird. The back of the car started to go down like someone or something was pushing it down. My friend started the car, turning it around to shine the lights into the meadow that was directly behind us, only to see a slight shadow of something disappearing into the trees. We thought maybe it was someone playing a trick on us, so we drove around the whole area and there were no other cars or people around. Being a little freaked out, we decided to go home. The next morning, early, we decided to go back up to try and hike the mountain. When we arrived at the parking lot, we went over to where all of this happened and didn't notice anything unusual. We started up the trail and started to get into quite a bit of snow. About 1.5 miles up the trail, we noticed some footprints that went off the trail and straight up the side of the hill. They were very large and quite far apart. I'm 6'1" and could not jump to the next one. We decided to follow them and traverse up the mountain. As we approached the base of some cliffs, we both got a weird feeling like someone was watching us. The snow was about 2 feet deep at this point and we were not able to go any further. We decided to turn back and head back down because the area we were in has a high danger of avalanches. 1 mile down towards the trail, we noticed a terrible stench, almost like rotting animal, and got that strange feeling again that someone was around. And at this point, we both looked at each other and said in unison, "Let's get out of here." Still to this day, it haunts me. I did not see what it was. I cannot explain what could have made the footprints that we saw either. I grew up around the mountains and have seen all kinds of tracks and wildlife, but I've never seen anything like that. Most people that I've told this to thinks that I'm crazy, but it really happened. I never believed in these sort of things until 16 years ago. I lived just outside of a small Michigan village of Marion. My sister and I were at a bus stop. I'm now 35 years old and still afraid to be outside alone without a gun. We always heard animals like deers and wolves and even bears, but what happened this certain day scared me for life. My sister and I were down at the bus stop. No one ever travels our road. We were getting bored, not knowing if school was canceled. Sun's still not up. We smelled something foul. I figured it to be a bear since they were common. About 10 minutes later, we heard cracking of branches and I assured my sister. About 5 minutes later, a large figure knocked a small tree over and chased my sister and I. I made it in the door and got my sister inside the house and I watched it keep running straight into the trees. My mom had to be late for work every day after that incident. I still remember the grunts and growls and I still have nightmares at night. People have always called me crazy for what I know I saw. We contacted the police who evaluated the area and took samples of the ground. I heard it again 4 years later one night. I hope you all enjoyed these encounter stories today, And thank you for listening until the end. I truly appreciate each and every one of you for being here today. Now, a special thanks goes out to the current OC channel members, Elizabeth, Jim, and Teresa. Thank you so much for your support. And if you haven't already, don't forget to hit that like button, the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell so you'll never miss another episode. And lastly, if you have an encounter story of your own, I'd love to hear about it. Send your stories to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com, and it could be featured in a future episode. Wishing you all a fantastic week ahead, and be sure to tune in next week for another exciting episode on Ontario Cryptids.